live in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's wait till people come on. Oh, and that's all right. We'll just start anyway. Hello, everybody. Seth and Veda here with the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast. And this is the first episode that we've done. We actually skipped last week because I got bit by a tick and got Lyme's disease. So and it's not anything to laugh about. It was like really, I'm super grateful that I was able to catch it so quick when so many people are just, it's endemic up here. Like people get bit by a tick, they get Lyme's disease, and they don't even know that they're sick, and they stay sick for years of their life. It's so that's why we didn't do an episode last week, because I got bit by a tick, got really, really sick, but I'm so blessed and so grateful that I was able to actually see a bullseye rash on my leg, because as soon as I saw that big bullseye rash, I knew why I was sick, because when it came on, I was like, what is happening? Like, why am I this sick? So man, not to go deep into that, but I'll just say it was a powerful, powerful learning experience of, who are we? How do we conduct ourselves? What kind of person are we? Because at the end of the day, my life force is like hovering over my body, and I'm observing myself from the observer perspective. And when you're in that state, you just see the things that truly matter, in that you see how fleeting life is. You see how there is so little that actually keeps us here. And, to have gratitude, to have love, to be grateful for every moment, these are the things that really, really matter. And if we as individuals could start giving value to the things that can't be bought, like loving life, loving this planet, loving each other. If we could start placing value on things like that instead of things that you can buy, then that would go a long way to making an impact, to changing this destructive course that our human species is on. So I just had to get that out. I wanted to say that because going through this whole thing that I did was really, really intense. Like it's a serious thing to go through something like that. But I'm feeling a million times better now, and I'm so grateful that I'm coming out on the other side of it, because wow, what a wake up call. But anyway, yeah, no, we were talking throughout the whole thing. It's like, man, but anyway, tonight's episode is going to be super cool, and it's not just because Veda is in a car garage. That's that's a side thing that makes it so cool. Are those Teslas, by the way? No, just kidding. This is a talk that we have talked about doing for a while, but it's a really important one in that it goes into indigenous thought, perspective, things that in many ways should be common sense for our modern perspective, but they're not. But we're going to discuss straight up, is water a living being? And what that means. What kind of rights should water have if it is a living being? And what is the indigenous perspective on that, Veda?
In New Zealand, the native Maori, of which I'm part Maori. My dad's quite a famous New Zealand fisherman here, and made a career out of doing something that he loved. And he also has something called the Maori fishing calendar, which is based on the placement of the moon and the moon cycles, which is really interesting. And he has his own version, like the fisherman's version of the ocean and the sea and the water, and even the water within us, which is really interesting. But the Maori perspective, from a very in real. It's a very deep, meaningful way in which they look at nature and water, really as living beings. So water itself is considered a living being, and New Zealand was the first country in the world where one of our rivers was given the rights of a person. It was actually given personhood. It's called the Whanganui River. And so I think it was like in the 1800s, up until the 1800s, the Maori, the Whanganui tribe, their job was to protect, maintain, and really care for the river, because there is a saying, and translated into English, essentially it says the health of the river reflects the health of the people. That comes.
What year did this? When did this happen? When were the rights bestowed to the river?
Happened in 2017. So, so when in the 1800s the Maori were colonised by the British, and a lot of their rights were taken away, and they were not able to be stewards any longer in the way in which they wanted to be of the rivers. And so they started to watch a lot of terrible things happen. So when you think about water as a body, for them it has a belly, it has a head, it has a mouth, and so they watched the belly of the river being stripped because it was being the gravel was being taken out of it. They watched the mouth being filled with effluents, and of the worst, they watched its headwaters be diverted. And for the Maori, the head is the most sacred part of the body, and for them it was as if the river was decapitated, and that was traumatizing and terrible. And so the tribe actually just kept pursuing and pursuing to make the river be able to actually have the legal rights of a person. And they succeeded. The government actually agreed, and they are now the Whanganui tribe, and they're now these stewards and guardians of the Whanganui River, which has now also been given the rights of a personhood, which means that it is got the legal identity essentially of a person. And so the tribe maintain it, they look after it, they care for it, and take it extremely seriously. And then inspired by that, the River Ganges and the River Yamuna were also given
in India.
the right.
In India, yeah. That just making a distinction here so people can understand.
Yeah.
First, she's talking about a river in New Zealand, and now the Ganges and I can't remember the other name are two sacred holy rivers in India.
Yeah. So it's called, and they were granted environmental personhood. So it really means that it also, of course, it comes down then to the people that care for it and that have to stand for the river. So from a Maori perspective, it is a very intimate relationship. For example, the word for spirit is it means two, like two waters. It's really very interesting because the word for Maori and the word for water in Maori is wai, W-A-I. And so it's a very interesting and intimate intertwining of relationship. So my dear friend, his name is Kalani Souza. He's a Hawaiian elder, one of the most amazing people I ever met. Really, truly incredible man. And he said that water isn't a resource, it's a relative.
Let me say that again for everybody. He said that water isn't a resource, it's a relative. Like, let that sink in for a second. see the shift, see the different perspective of what that entails for us. That's big. That's a huge deal.
So I'm just kind of I'm going through some notes because I want to cover as much accurately as I can.
Yes.
Uh,
Don't worry. I didn't expect you to memorize all this.
But I know quite a lot of it, but there's some words that, so like I'm thinking about the concept of water having the power to store memory as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so in ancient Greek, which I always loved, ancient Greek and Latin and all that kind of ancient history,
Yeah.
there's a river called Lethe, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, Lethe, which was the river of forgetfulness. And then there's the river Minamisini, I think, which is the river of memory. And they said that both rivers run side by side in the underworld and Hades, and that the privileged ones, after they transcend their body, they go towards Hades and they drink from the river of memory. And they get to remember everything that was, everything that is, and everything that will be. And they were allowed to leave with all memory, and they were considered to be the wise ones, the prophets, and they were able to go forward into the world because all the memories of everyone that ever passed and everything that ever happened was held within the river of memory.
Oh my God.
But most people would drink from the river of forgetfulness, and the in these times it was believed that the dead, they didn't need their memory. It was more helpful for the living. And in the underworld, they didn't need that, and so their memory was taken away. And if you consider that, so often we don't remember our past, you know, and we have drunk from the river of forgetfulness,
Oh my God.
and every then something will trigger a little memory, maybe, of something that has happened in the time that we don't remember, but something will be triggered inside of us. So I think there's like rivers inside of us too, which are the rivers of memory and the rivers of forgetfulness. And then also I think that there are, in olden times, before plumbing, before the Romans put all the plumbing together and there were water closets, essentially, toilets, and water started being used in these ways that we are used to now. Water used to be called the waters. It was considered to be a body of water. And so the only way in which we ever really use that term now is when we say her waters broke. Her waters broke. And then with the times where plumbing and all that came, it just started to get called water. So it got kind of diluted down, essentially.
Jeez.
And then within scientific realm, it started just being called H2O. So it kind of went from being revered as the waters to just water to H2O. And I think it's time to have a kind of renaissance of a water appreciation and starting to appreciate water from a new perspective, whereby we consider it to be, or at least I invite people to start considering it to, at the very least, be able to store information. At the very most, that is an actual conscious being itself. And with the work that I've been doing, and with work actually many people have been doing, just all in different ways, it's certainly there's a lot of evidence now to say that water does store information. But
How would you correlate that? I mean, it's interesting, all these things that you're sharing that are almost like mythology in a way, but they're not. There's a lot of veracity to it, but it's the water of memory, the memory of like, it very much ties into the whole modern concept that people are starting to realize, like, oh, water has memory. So when you say water stores information, is that what you mean? Like the water has memory?
well, I think that we like to use the word memory can trigger people.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I can say memory because my work certainly suggests that it doesn't just store memory. It's not just memory, it's actually responsive. that's a whole next level. The
Yeah.
work that I've been doing with crystallography, if anybody doesn't know what I'm doing, just go to my website, which is vitaaustin.com, or look through some of the stuff on the Water Conscious page, because I share a lot of my work. But I don't think that that's just suggesting that water has memory. I think it's suggesting that water is responsive and intelligent. But just starting with the memory part, I think that there's kind of two things that happen. I think that water stores information, so information can be seen as like dissolved solids, can see it as what's in the water, it can be seen in multiple things. Water storing memory, I think water does have a memory of where it's been, where it's began, because what I see in my crystallography when I've done studies of tap water versus fresh, beautiful spring water forms these beautiful hexagons and this kind of flower-like shapes.
Yeah.
So when water that has like tap water has got no real structure, it's just very disordered. But when you restructure, or when you put water through a vortex machine, or you do various different things to the water, the memory returns, because you start to see those very telltale signs of those flowers and those hexagons start to come back. So through crystallography, you can see that water has a memory of its original blueprint, just like I think we do. So in that very rudimentary, entry-level way, I think that water is showing that it does definitely have a memory, because if it didn't have a memory of its origins, it wouldn't be able to return to them through these very specific patterns. And then when you get a little further, and then you start, because I think Masaru Emoto's work really brought the concept of water memory into people's minds. And he did that through a very artistic expression, because I've said this a few times, but I think what Emoto did was bring an awareness through art, through our connection to the images, the water's liquid lens, how it saw hate and how it saw gratitude or love. And we became very connected to those pictures, that these beautiful photos that he took of the crystallography. But what I'm seeing is far different than that. What I'm seeing within my work are actual images of people, of animals, of insects, of sea creatures, of nature, of you name it. They just keep showing up. And so in those respects, water actually having an intelligence, an intelligent blue mind as such, is very real for me. And it's very hard to get your head around, because the images are so consistent. But it's the body of work. It's like over 10,000 photos of water responding through this very, this kind of liquid intelligent designer. So it's like the water is like an architect.
And so for everybody listening, Kay, like what she's talking about right now, scroll down this page, like keep scrolling down it and look at the post from her, Veda Austin, and you'll see what she's talking about. It's so mind-boggling. It just so works the realms of who and what we think we are, that you can't make sense of it. And so you kind of just like surrender to it. And it's in that surrender that you begin to figure out how intelligent water is, life is. Like, we are a part of forces that are way more intelligent than we are. And her work with crystallography is able to show a sliver of that intelligence, but way more than most people are doing it. But she's able to demonstrate that replicatable again and again and again and again. And when you start to be aware of water in that way and you interact with it from that perspective, that's when you can truly enact change. Somebody said here, Carmen says she's blown away by the unicorn formations. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, and my daughter did that. So that's the beautiful
Mm.
thing, is that my children have been grown up doing this work with me. And so with my ebook that you can get on my website, at least 10 of those images were done by my children. And some of them were done entirely. They even took the photograph. So I've taught them how to do this. And so for them, it's like quite a normal thing to you know, to do mummy's ice co-creations. And they know that don't call them experiments as well. So that's
Yeah,
good.
experiments is banned in that house. Not
Yeah.
experiment.
But anyone that doesn't know why I don't like the word experiment, it's because I consider myself to be a body of water, and I don't like the idea of being experimented on. And I guess it's also because it comes into that beginning part where we were talking about relationships,
Yeah.
rather than water as a commodity or a resource. When you start forming a relationship, so that's, I think, where there is a reciprocation that comes with that. A relationship is about two things, two beings, and both of them have the relationship. There's something that I get back and something that water is getting from me, or having fun with what I'm doing with the water. But for me, it's more there is a very inner relationship,
Yeah.
because we always seem to look in the mirror and we think we're so solid, and we think we can't. It's so easy because so much of life is seeing is believing. So when we're looking at our body, we consider ourselves to, this is what I look like, this is my body, this is, it's so solid, but
Yeah.
everything in it is so liquid, and so it's all moving. And
And even beyond
I
that, it's all atomic. At the atomic level, it's pure space. It's just emptiness. It's energy. And it's just vibrating so fast that it takes on the appearance of a liquid substrate that then takes on the appearance of this blob that we're in.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at this air that surrounds us. I mean, there's water in this as well, and we can't see it.
Oh my God.
So I just keep coming back to relationship, though, and I think that one of the reasons we have such strong bonds with with people we love and our family, and obviously that varies from family to family, but we do form strong bonds with people we love, and it's almost as if the water, the water within us is forming a relationship with the water within someone else.
Yeah.
And it's like I look at how you can have different types of waters. Like a bubble can uh, sit on the top of water. Both of them are water, but you can see water in two different ways. And so sometimes we have different kinds of relationships. Sometimes our relationship is very intimate. It's almost like the waters intertwine, which is like the whole process of procreation. And the process of life, is so much about a very specific fluids. And although a lot of people may or may not really understand about fourth phase water, it's the kind of water our body converts normal, regular water into this fourth phase, which stretches more, it absorbs more light, it's got a negative charge, it is more ordered so it can store information, it has a slightly higher pH, it's got all these particular qualities. It's like a kind of self-generating battery. And
Mm.
so the fluids within the human being, especially around procreation, the healthier this very incredible fourth phase water within the body is, the more likely you can you'll be more fertile. The body wants to create life through liquid, and so it's no small thing. It's a big deal.
It's super intense to think too, like semen, vaginal fluid, amniotic fluid, like this is highly structured water, and the integrity of it on a microscopic level and beyond is really what we're talking about here. And but it's so interesting because it's so fluid and just like, but that's it. It is just highly structured, easy water, exclusion zone, fourth phase water. Essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it really is. But also, it stores information. Like, look at the information exchange from sperm and an egg to create life. There's information for the formation of the child.
Every
So
single one of us.
I'm very,
Every
very
single one of
interested.
us. Like, it's mind blowing. We are all the result of highly structured water and information coming together and creating. It's phenomenal. Hold
It
really
is.
quick, Sharon, before you go into it. Sharon says, your work is so amazing. I have always been drawn to water, and it is my calming place. Your work helps me realize why. It always makes me feel so much better, and I always get positive from water. How sweet. What a nice thing to say. Hi, Sharon.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that comment. It's true. I mean, I remember reading about, and we can flip back to that because I would quite like to talk about a study I've done with egg white with you.
Yeah.
But what that comment reminded me of was I read a little bit about Victor Schauberger. For anyone who doesn't know, he's like the vortexing legend guy. He's also called the water whisperer as well, and he really
Water
was just like
whisperers.
the water wizard.
Oh, yeah,
And
he's the water wizard. You're the water whisperer.
I used to call him water whisperer too because I like that. But anyway, I remember reading, and he was not so much about all the practical, amazing work that he did through real, true observation,
Yeah.
but he was sitting on the bank of a stream, and he said that he felt that his consciousness was taken away by the stream. The stream took it away, and he kind of lost awareness of himself.
Mm.
And then after some time, he said that the water came back and gave his consciousness back to him, but gave it back to him with new insights, new memory of water, made him truly understand what water likes, the temperature it likes, the way it likes to move. And so he had a conscious connection with water as a living being, as a divine, as something divine that he thought. So I don't think it has to just be indigenous tribes or different cultures. It's up to us to have a divine relationship with water, because by having a divine relationship with water is having a divine relationship with ourselves. Because again, by molecular count, we're 99% water. And that is such a powerful thing to absorb, literally. So but I'll come back. So I was very interested in amniotic because I was always thinking, what would be the most naturally informed water outside of
Informed, you said. The
maybe
most naturally
outside,
informed, you said? Okay.
yeah.
Want to make.
What would store the most information? And I was, of course, I've done tests with seawater, but I thought it would have to be amniotic fluid. And so I can't just like run around hoping that a pregnant woman's waters would break and go, can I have some of that? It was really inappropriate. so so that didn't happen.
People have
But
done crazier, but yeah.
so I went to I went to eggs because I thought, well, essentially egg white is a type of amniotic fluid, and that. So I started to you do crystallography with egg white, and I observed that there's two parts in the egg white. There's a kind of big gloopy part of egg white, and then there's a really thin part which is more like saliva. And I think the kind of gelatinous gloopy part is more of the protein for the bird, whereas the thinner part is actually the part that I think stores not only information for the formation potentially of the bird, but also potentially a kind of history, a kind of ancestral history, and that a transference. And so what I saw whenever I would freeze, and I've now done chicken, egg, goose, and quail eggs, and all of them in the bird family create very specific and absolutely beautiful pictures and patterns. So there's 6 patterns that I've named, and I'm pretty sure that no one has actually done this. I taught some guys at Gerald Pollack's lab actually how to do this, and anyone can do this. I might do a video teaching people how to do this actually, which would be really fun because it's fun for the children to see, and it doesn't require you to have a conscious kind of connection. It's actually one of my more scientifically provable, repeatable studies that anyone can do. So one looks like kind of like a volcano, and then there's one that looks like a feather, and then there's this kind of weaving, and then there's one, hi Venus, hi little one. Oh, she's so cute.
She came up meowing. She hears talk of chicken eggs and all that, and she's like, "Oh, oh, you're a good girl."
So I started to see all these formations, and they were consistent. They'd always show up. But what was super interesting was that when I used, not that I wanted to buy them at all, but I wanted to see if there was a comparison, battery hens, which are essentially chickens that are like caged and treated really badly and are in very poor conditions, the egg white, it doesn't show 6 patterns. It's lucky if it shows 1 pattern. So it shows that trauma affects life on a very, very, in a very big way. I think it's a very important thing that I'm saying and that I've observed. So, whereas free-range, freshly laid eggs create the most gorgeous pictures. They really look like flowers, and like, it's just not what you would ever expect to see in egg white. And so I wondered, because I'm in New Zealand, and in New Zealand we've got nothing that will kill you here. So as far as wildlife or anything goes, I wanted to know if there's anyone watching in Australia that has access to like crocodile eggs that have not been fertilized maybe. I want to be able to see if crocodile eggs actually form different patterns. And if they form consistent different patterns, say from the reptile kind of area, or snake eggs, for example, if I see different patterns that form consistently, I think that would be a big deal. That would be, for me, suggesting that there really is more information, more to learn within amniotic fluid than meets the eye. I don't think it's just cushioning for the embryo or protein or things like that. I actually think it's storing very important information. So that's kind of where I want to take that study next, because I've been studying egg white for over a year now.
And for anybody who hasn't seen the images from it, it is so unique and fascinating. And it very much looks like the stone agate, the gemstone. There's a stone, people, they polish it and they make it, but it just the structure of the crystal, the crystallography of it is very much like agate. It's amazing. It's so different than all the other water crystallography pictures as well. It's phenomenal.
It's really different, and it's really fascinating stuff,
Yeah.
which then just keeps bringing back down to the sacredness of the water within us and around the whole process of procreation and around just life itself. And there's nothing that is born dry. Essentially, what I mean by that is not born but conceived. So everything's either in a womb, in amniotic fluid, or it's in like jelly, like frog spawn or caviar, I guess. And there is then the other very like eggs. So everything's within a fluid before it emerges out as a creature.
Yeah.
So even there's always, the conception is in some kind of fluid. And although I have to wonder, I don't know this, but I'm assuming so. But I've never I've always wondered about spiders.
You've
I've
always wondered
always wondered
what?
about spiders, spiders.
Spiders. Interesting.
Is there a spiders? Are they like they are in little? They have
It'd
like
be
sacs, don't
they do they lay eggs. Some spiders lay eggs, but man, it would
sacs?
be
Is it, is there a fluid? If anybody knows
yeah,
that,
it's
it's
just
one of the crazy
you
things I'd
it'd be
like to
very
know.
little
I should,
amounts, that's for sure. Probably very small amounts. So Sharon asked if you could post some pictures of the egg white, which I'm sure you can at some point.
I think I can do a screen share here. I don't know if I
Or
can
you
or
can
not
text
though.
it to me and I can put it up on this too.
Huh?
I said
Sorry, what?
if you find a picture, text it to me, and then
Yeah,
I can put it on the screen as we're talking.
yeah. Okay, I'll do that. Pretty sure. Um, albums. We've got a whole section on egg white.
Yeah,
Um,
no, they're gorgeous. I when you first showed it to me, I was like, amazing, just right into it.
they're really beautiful. There's no doubt about it. Bear with me.
No
Um,
problem.
I'll just send you some
Yeah.
anyway.
Here, while you're doing that, I'm gonna share this video in a few places to get it out there.
Okay. Okay, I just sent just some pictures to you
Through Messenger or
through Messenger. I guess it's still sending. It's weird because it doesn't say it's sent, and I don't know
yeah.
why. I am actually in a. I can see it hasn't done its thing. Why didn't you do that?
Is there
No.
Wi-Fi where you are? Or?
Well, everything else is working here. Um, I'll try it a different way.
Ah, there it goes. I just got it. Okay. All right, perfect. It's there. Let me pull it up on the computer. Bear with us, everybody, here, as we do the impossible by getting technology
Well,
working for us.
grateful. I'll do a shout out to Hyundai in Green Lane. They have been fantastic. This is their range of cars, but they're actually servicing my car at the moment, and they let me have this little space all to myself, just
So,
so I could
so
do
your
this
car's
with
getting
you.
fixed? That's what you're doing?
What? My car's getting serviced. Yeah,
Oh.
I need a new. I do a lot of driving.
Just so you know, where I am in the state of Maine right now, there's a hurricane that is coming down south. And so the winds are just blowing like crazy, and there's a bunch of people have lost their power. So if this all of a sudden goes out, that's what
uh,
happened.
God, my heart's going out to everybody in Lebanon right now. What
What
happened
happened
there?
anyway? I just my
I don't
friend Martha mentioned
exactly.
it, but I didn't get to hear.
Well, near the port, and they had those two huge. One, just that second one was just this huge explosion, and I think that no one really knows exactly what happened yet. But oh, just my God, watching it was so reminiscent of me being in the Christchurch earthquakes and just that horrible feeling of being so scared for your life. I really, my
Oh my.
heart goes out to everybody.
That's the thing. There's so much pain and suffering in the world. Earlier I was feeling really, just going through some of my own stuff and like feeling really emotional and kind of sad and grieving. And then I stopped myself. It's funny. I was talking to one of my friends actually, and I'm like, who am I to feel bad about anything when there's people all over the world who can't eat and he's like, no, he goes, don't look at it like that. He's like, all pain and suffering is valid. All the things that we go through are valid. Like, it doesn't matter like that. There's always going to be something in the world that's wrong. But what can you focus on that's going to make you right? That's going to elevate you? That's going to bring you to a new state? Like, and that's what these podcasts are about. That's what this whole thing is about. Okay, there's one. Can somebody text us just to let me know that this is coming up on the screen? Let me see. Hold on. It should be coming up.
probably is.
Um, I'm just gonna put the rest of them on here. There's no, there was.
I'll probably do a whole thing on egg white at some point. So
Yep.
I can, if they're not showing, I can give, you can put them in the comments maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I think they are showing now.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being in India because I've been to India 9 times, and I don't remember which trip it was, but I was in this big black taxi cab. Every time you're driving, and well, I didn't drive, but every time you're in a car in India, it's yeah, it's a matter of faith. It's just that you're going to make it. It's so chaotic and crazy. But somehow in India, everything is chaos, but everything also, there's so much order, everything gets done. India is like a second home to me in many ways. But I remember being in this cab, and the traffic was just so bad.
mm-hmm.
And I was on the kind of closest to the airport in Delhi, and it was just everything was at a standstill because there's cows going past and people, and just like it's not like a freeway that we would
Mm-hmm.
imagine. And I saw it was quite, it was like about 11:30 at night, and I saw this little red piece of material like outside my window, and I'm like, I was looking and I was like, what is that? And I looked down, and it was this little red handkerchief, and attached to the little red handkerchief was this maybe 4 or 5 year old little girl, and she was just trying to like clean my window. And her and her very young mother, I'm thinking, were there just begging for money. And
Mm.
this little thing, she was just a little dot, and her
Mm.
little hand was there trying to like clean the window. And it just was one of the most heart wrenching things that affected me on a much deeper level. And there's and yet this little girl, she just had the most incredibly beautiful smile. And even though she should have been in bed, it was nearly midnight, and they're out on the middle of the freeway in the dust and the pollution and all of it, trying to clean people's windows just to make money to live.
Mm.
And when you see real poverty, and you see you know, just people just going to the defecating on the just in the
Yeah,
on the
right on the
road,
street.
and you see people just doing things you just would never really see, but you see also the joy. You see the children playing with stones and with sticks and just laughing and joking and running after each other. I took my children, my 2 sons, my daughter wasn't born, and I wanted them to have an experience of life, because we essentially in the West have so easy. We have all these choices about water, all these choices about food, all these choices about life and our health, things we can do, and yet for many people, this is just not the case. And that attitude of gratitude, when we do go into that space of feeling sad about something, not to take away from the emotion, because we all feel that emotion, but to go into an attitude of gratitude.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My car's ready.
All
To go
right.
into an attitude of gratitude every day, it's so important, because it really does make you feel different.
Yeah.
I think that the best way to shift out of a sad or bad space is to start looking at what you do have good in your life, and one of those things from the very beginning of this conversation is our health.
Yeah.
So, it is that if you have the ability to breathe freely, if you have the ability to walk, if you have the ability to take all the things that we tend to take for granted. I think just going into a very deep gratitude space is so helpful, especially in these times.
Especially in these times. Yeah. And look, everybody, it is the craziest times ever. Every single system that is in place is breaking down because something new is getting ready to take its place. That's the potential that exist right now? What if that new thing that's getting ready to take the place of all these decaying systems is us with an elevated state of being, with an attitude of gratitude, with love in our heart, with innocence in our eyes, seeing ourselves and each other like children, and seeing the awe and wonder that is innate in all of us. We are that, you guys. Like we were just, I mean, it wasn't even that long ago, and we were all little tiny salamander like embryos inside of our mother's egg. All of us were. We didn't even look human. You know, it's like this total mind, and from that we've developed, we've grown, we've just become more and more into this form that we are. And as we have these forms with all of its complexity, we lose sight of the source of power that enables all of this to exist in the first place. But if we consciously make efforts to reconnect to that source of power while we're here, we can bring all that stuff back times infinity. And that's what this is about. That's where we have the potential to go.
Well,
Yeah. All
probably
right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast with Veda Austin and myself, Seth Leaf Prusansky. To learn more about Veda, go to VedaAustin.com and also scroll down below and see all the other posts and stuff that she makes. It's amazing. Her book is
and if,
out.
and if anyone's got any access, like to somehow consciously kind of get has access to any crocodile eggs
Yes,
or snake
or
eggs,
spider. Any crocodile eggs or
snake
spider eggs, please reach
eggs
out.
about spiders, I might Google that. I'm sure Google will tell me.
Yeah, funny. That's so funny. So, yes, thank you everybody for tuning in, and share, like this, love it, share it, help us get the word out there.
Beautiful.
All right. Thank you.
Everyone, hang on. Yeah, I'm balancing you.
Oh, okay. Till next time,
Beautiful.
you guys. Thank you again.